Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. You ready for another episode of My Bigfoot Sighting? Alright then, let's do this.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, love's in the plow, and the five-string melodies grooving, with the farmland roads where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah.
If you'd like to be able to listen to the show without ads and have full access to bonus content, that's an option. To find out how, please go to mybigfootsighting.com.
My Bigfoot sighting happened when I was with my mom. Right when I had just got back home from boot camp, actually, but my first ever experience, now that I had put the two together, at first I didn't know what it was before I went to basic. Being from Colorado, I had to lie in MEPS about not having asthma and all that stuff, but being at this high elevation my whole life, and, I trained in the mountains and stuff, running up mountains, and full fatigues and all that type of stuff, with a couple buddies of mine. And that's when my first experience happened. Now that I think about it, it had to have been, because nothing else throws rocks. I know bears don't. And where we were, there was no one else around. Because at the time I was living in northern Colorado. So we were we're Highway 34. It goes up into the mountains through Loveland. And you could take that all the way to Estes Park, which is famous for the Stanley Hotel. That was part of it was, in The Shining. And I guess it's a haunted hotel or whatnot. We were probably maybe 15 miles still out of Estes when we pulled over to the side of the road. And I had, a rucksack with me that I just put, just weights in and stuff like that. I did have my Springfield 45 1911 with a wood grain grip on it. So it was a World War II edition, Raider Marine logo sketched out into the grip of it, which was pretty cool. I love that gun to this day still. And my buddy had put like a rucksack on. Not really, it was a backpack, that you could just buy at like some stores with like the fake little camos on it, and just basically did the same thing as me and just put a bunch of weights in it. He wasn't joining the military, but he didn't mind getting a cardio workout in. And we just parked on the side of the road, and there's no trails going up these mountains. It's pretty steep up there. And we just started going right up. And it probably took a good almost 2 hours to reach the summit. And when we had reached the summit, I remember just looking out and being like, wow, oh my goodness. Like, I can guarantee you there's so many places out here that people have never been to. When you get really to those tops of those mountains and are able to look out how vast Colorado really can be, it's a little bit shocking for sure. It's pretty amazing to say the least. So anyway, it had been like 5 minutes up there, and I remember my buddy, his name was Dylan too. He comes running around this boulder because he had to go take a piss around the corner, and he had like this look of like shock on his face, and I was like, what? You know what I mean? I was like, what the heck's wrong with you? He's like, there's a black bear around the boulder. It's like this little like boulder field, I guess you could say, on top of where we were. And these were like big boulders, And I was like, oh yes. So I went around to where he was, and sure enough, there was like a little boar black bear. I could tell he was a male, digging in the dirt, And I was like, hey bear, and I remember he was like, shoot it. I was like, I'm not gonna shoot it, dude. That's poaching, bro. Like, there's no way. Unless it tries to attack me, I'm not gonna shoot this animal. He's not. There was never like a hunter and stuff like that. I know he like had all like these hunting clothes and all that. He's more of a fisherman, but he had never really hunted before. And yeah, I was just like, no, there's no way, you know what I mean? But I did shoot into the ground just to scare him off, but there was no way I was going to shoot that bear. And after that, we sat back down, and I remember we had smoked a couple more cigarettes. I know, like, it's kind of stupid, like I'm going in the boot soon, but I don't care. I mean, I was smoking cigarettes then. I do too to this day still. I mean, obviously you couldn't in boot camp, obviously, but I did throughout my time with that as well. Anyway, after we had put our cigarette out, I remember we had gotten this weird feeling of like, hey, it's getting dark. Like, let's get down from here now. Let's get out of here. And so we started on our way down, and it had to have been within the first 3 minutes of us starting our descent down. A football-sized boulder rock came like zooming by our heads. It didn't come close to mine, but it came really close to my buddy's head. Like, it almost nailed him. And at the time, I remember we both had a weird feeling about it, but we just thought, like, I didn't know at the time, but I didn't think, like, maybe a bear kicked the rock off or something like that, or it had fell. But it didn't occur to me at the time, like, hey, we're basically still at the top of this mountain. I didn't think of that at the time. I just kind of brushed it in the back of my head, like, hey, it was something that rolled off. Because up to this point, I didn't really, like, I always, growing up, saw, like, the Monster Quest shows and the In Search Of and all that, finding Bigfoot stuff. And I thought it was a cool idea, but I never really believed in there being anything like that out in the woods. So I didn't put any credibility to it. So at the time, I didn't. I do recall the weird feeling, but I didn't think it was put two and two together at the time, anyway, to say the least. So we wound up, got down from there and didn't think anything of it. And now fast forward a little over 13 weeks, because I had shipped out like a couple of days after that happened. So when I had come home before I went to my AIT, which is Advanced Infantry Training for people who don't know, and I got to come see my family. My wife at the time, we had to legally get married because she was pregnant and going active duty. You can't be a single father in active duty, so we just got married. It is what it is. I mean, we were planning on it at the time anyway, but that's not what we're here to talk about anyway. So I gotten home, and my mom had been just diagnosed with Addison's disease. If you don't know what that is, it's your adrenal glands, they don't produce that adrenal fluid for themselves anymore. She has to take steroids for the rest of her life, unfortunately, to be able just to get up, for her to get that get up and go. And at times she's had seizures from it and all that sorts of medical issues, but she had just been diagnosed with this at the time. And I remember, asking her, like, hey, do you want to go on a little hike? Like, let's go up to Sedalia. Sedalia is south of Denver. It's by Castle Rock, if anyone knows where that is. It's like west of Castle Rock, and basically just west up from Sedalia and into the mountains there. We went to this road called Rampart Range Road. It's big dirt road, big dirt like parking lot. We've been there, many times before this too. We've been there before, and we, just set off and a little hike. And I had noticed that my mom was pretty slow. Like, she wasn't keeping up with me very easily. Obviously, I was in the best shape of my life at that point in time. But so at least I wasn't gonna like lead her, obviously, but like I was ahead of her a little bit, just kind of just looking around, just looking at stuff, exploring. And I mean, this couldn't have been, more than 150 yards away from the start of the trail that heads deeper west into the forest. And what this hill is like, it's like a hill, like a foothill in the mountains, basically. I guess in the south they call it like a holler. But up to this point, I remember I had jumped up on this like dead log, this tree that like looked like it had been logged or something, because it was just a stump of it now. And it looked like it had been cut. I remember thinking that. And I had hopped up on it, and when I looked down this foothill is when my life, changed forever. Because, whatever people call Sasquatch or those creatures you've heard about your whole life, was right maybe 50 feet from me, but it wasn't looking at me, it was walking down away from me. So I could only see the back of it at this point, and how big it was. I don't think people really can understand and put in perspective like how big these freaking things are. I mean, it's just like sharks, you know, in real life, you got to see them up close and personal to really like appreciate how large they are. Because this thing was at least 8.5, 9, maybe 9 foot tall, and like at least 4 feet wide, you know, and had like this darkish brown, not red, but it was like a dark brown where like I could see it almost being black at night, especially like in lower lighting situations. But it was huge, and it was walking away from me, and I won't lie, I screamed like a little girl, basically. I screamed and it freaked my mom out, and I remember I had turned at first and it was fight or flight. I just ran right past my mom at first, just zoomed, and I had to stop myself like, oh my God, I can't leave my mom, duh. What are you doing? You know, my mom's sitting there yelling and like, oh, what is going on? What? You know, like, I was like, hold on, Mom. I was like, because my mom, you know, she's one of those people that she's just so honest. Like, even growing up, you know, like she embarrassed me with how honest she was sometimes. That's how like of an honest person she was. Like, people know she does not lie. So I was like, you know what? I got to you got to see this, Mom. She's like, see what? See what? And so I was like, come here, you just got to see this. Because, I mean, I'm thinking, you know, if my mom doesn't see this, then no one's going to believe me. They're, you know, everyone's going to think I'm just making this up. So I had basically forced my mom to come back to the spot to where I was. And looking down, I was like, I said a word I probably shouldn't have. And it's gone, you know. And I had turned around, and I had a pistol on me at the time, too. I had a Springfield Colt 7-inch barrel single action Colt 45. And I remember turning around and like thinking like it's gone, you know. And then my mom started screaming like bloody murder, and I turned back around. It wasn't gone. What it had done was it had walked. So it obviously had heard me when I had first saw it and screamed, and it walked down to the bottom of this hill, and where this evergreen tree was, and like this, like I guess it looked like kind of like an oak bush or something, some type of bush. It had been kneeling down behind it, watching us. And then when I had turned my back, because I thought it was gone, it stood up. And then my mom's now looking at it, screaming like bloody murder scream. And I turned around and I could see it now. I'm like, I told you. And she's like, you didn't tell me anything. I was like, well, I mean, I know, but I was like, I had to make sure you see this because, I mean, like, I'm not crazy. Like, that's a Bigfoot, you know? And I just still remember just the adrenaline that was going through my body at that moment in time. It's just the type of primal fear that being in combat, like I still have never experienced that type of primal fear since that day. And it just kind of stood there for maybe, it felt like a couple minutes, but I mean, it was maybe 20 seconds at the most. And at this point, I totally forgot I had a gun on me. It was just looking at us, like giving us this that vibe of like, you know, if I wanted to, I could hurt you. Get out of here, basically. And it just turned, and you know, within a few seconds, it was gone. We couldn't see it anymore. And it's kind of crazy how it could just disappear like that quickly. Like, it took a couple steps to its right, and it was gone. And me and my mom, needless to say, got the heck out of there. We were like, all right, you know, let's get out of here for sure. And we got out of there, and that's the only time I've actually made eye contact. Saw one of these, a Sasquatch, which I know for a fact is a Sasquatch. After people see these things, they say like, "Oh, I'm a believer now" or whatever. No, I know what's out there. Like, I know for a fact that is out there now, like real. I didn't used to, but now I know, and it put me into like an obsession, almost kind of, where like now that I know these things exist. I want to know so much more about them, you know? And why aren't people being told about this? I feel like people should know about this, and I feel like, you know, Big Brother does know about it, but if they don't want something to be known, it's not going to be known. Period. Anyway, so that was my encounter where I made visual contact. So this is what happened a couple weeks later. This is not a Sasquatch. I don't know what this was, but me and my buddy, you know, we were young at the time, and you know, before we were going to AIT, you know, we were drinking and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, do you want to go see where me and my mom saw a Sasquatch? So he was like, yeah, you know, we were all drinking and stuff. It's not a good. No, I would never drink and drive. You know, we were young and dumb, stupid kids. You know, So we drove up there at like 3 a.m. with this stick shift BMW to where me and my mom had saw this and like ran off trail. And, there's only liquid courage. I don't know why we did this. It's so stupid. And we were like trying to make Sasquatch calls or something. I remember like laughing about it with him. And then something like had purposely stepped on a stick to get our attention. It seemed like it was purposely done. And we both turned around, and still to this day, I don't know what it was, but it was in the same location, same parking lot, right off the trail, a tall silhouette figure. And on the soul of my brother, this is true. This is very true. I don't know what it was though. This thing had like a glowing deer head for a skull, but the rest of its like body was like a black silhouette. And I remember just went into fight or flight immediately from looking at this thing. And it's not advised, but we drove very drunk off of in a stick shift BMW 2-seater super quick off that mountain. And it is not safe, but thank God was watching out for me and got us home safely and taught us a lesson. I still to this day don't know what that is, but I mean that opened my eyes to like, oh my God, and first Bigfoot and then this thing. I don't even know what this thing is. I mean, what else is out there? Like we don't even know. It's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, who knows what could be out there? This just blows my mind because I mean, I never thought in a million years that could be real. People would have to worry about that while being out in the wilderness, Like now I would not camp in a tent. Like I just won't do it. Next, I'm going to get into my Dogman experiences. I've only had one visual sighting with a Dogman too. I've only seen one of them, but my brother's had more than one. And may he rest in peace. He passed away 2 years ago almost now. My little brother is the hardest thing I've ever had to go through in my life by far. Losing my best friend. Me and him were very close. And he was also one of these people that were just like my mom, just so honest. It's like they're honest to a fault almost. And anyway, where we had been living, it's on the border between Denver and Aurora. So the crazy thing about this is this is not in the middle of the mountains, like there's Cherry Creek State Park. And anyone who knows Colorado, like on the Front Range, there's these areas that are connected to rivers and stuff like that are connected to the mountains, that slope down into the Front Range. So there's definitely like these places that could have some crazy people could hide in them, whatever animals, things could hide, to say the least. And where we were living at this time, we had been hearing, from some of our buddies, like, and we hadn't told anyone that we were into cryptids or anything like that. Like my mom was and me, but my brother to this point wasn't. He thought it was all bull crap too. But me and my mom didn't like it. We were listening to like encounter stories at night, like just started to be obsessed with it. So we didn't talk to our friends about this, to say the least. Had told us, which caught my attention, were they described as like walking coyotes. They said at night that would eat the raccoons out of that would come to these dumpsters on the side of where this little forested area is that's connected to this golf course that's connected to Cherry Creek Reservoir. And I remember thinking and putting it together and telling them, that's something, that sounds like a Dogman or something, like walking coyotes, like, And I don't know why, I couldn't see who told us that, making it up, but then again, I didn't know. I just had put two, I was like, it sounds like a Dogman. And so this is about maybe a couple months later. Our good friend of ours, we had came over to his house this one morning, and he told us, I'm going in chronological order, so this is how everything happened in like order. He had told us, me and my mom and my brother, that last night, one of his other buddies who's there was out smoking a cigarette and is out the back side of his apartments that's lined up next to the golf course in this little forested area. And there's like this little path and this fence right there behind these apartments. And he said he was back there smoking the cigarette. And he runs in and tells our friend, hey, there's some, suspicious looking guy back there running around like with this trench coat on, and he's really tall and blah, all this stuff that like, freaked our friend out, to say the least, because he doesn't want any suspicious characters up to no good, possible hoodlum, who knows, running around doing suspicious stuff, who knows, around like his neighborhood and his neighbors. He doesn't want nothing like bad to happen, so he goes out there and he brings his gun, it's legal, of course. I have a legal concealed carry too. And he goes back there and checks it out, and what he notices, this is what he tells us, maybe about I think he said up to like 50 yards to his left, it would be his west, on the other side of the fence still, but you could see it from where the light that lights up the sidewalk for the apartments and the back side. It's on the other side of the fence, right where the golf course meets that forested area. He saw what he described as like this walking German Shepherd husky looking werewolf type of thing. And at first he said he didn't know what it was. He thought it was someone like wearing a costume or something like that. At first, wearing like a werewolf head costume or something. And he said when it had noticed him, it made this noise, it turned and looked at him. And he said within 2 seconds, he said he could not believe, it blew his mind how quick this thing was. Within 2 seconds, he had dropped down to all fours and was like 10 feet, 15 feet in front of him, but like directly parallel from him on the other side of the fence from where he's standing behind his apartment now. And it stands back up on two legs. And I remember him telling me about, it looks like these things that said like, almost like flashlights or something, like as eyeballs, because he wasn't shining any light at it. And the eyes that this thing had was putting off this gold glowing light that was very prominent. And one of the things that he noticed from this creature while staring at him, and it started to growl. And even though he had his gun in his hand, he told me, he's like, oh, I'm not dealing with this. I don't even know what that is. And he was smart enough not to, turn around and start running, but he just slowly backed up, and he's making eye contact with it. It's probably not the best idea, but the whole time. And he backs up, to the back door of the apartments and opens it, and then goes inside and locks all his windows and doors. And like I had said earlier, like we haven't told any of our friend circle anything about cryptids and stuff like that. So for him to tell us like this, and the person that this guy was, I mean, there was no way he was just going to make something like this up. No way. Like, he's the last person on earth I would think would tell me something like this. And now, from hearing those with the walking coyotes that eat the raccoons and stuff at night, and then hearing this, I'm like, holy cow, like that's a Dogman, like that is definitely. I remember getting goosebumps thinking about it while he's telling me this. So now this is about a month later when me and my brother finally have our encounter. And my brother finds out that, it's the hard way, that seeing is believing, I guess, but that these things are definitely not fairy tales. And it's unfortunate people don't know more about them and how close they are to freaking civilians, like to civilian life. Like this is an urban area. This is not rural where this is. So anyway, we're leaving our buddy's house, and we were going to go to this bus stop. Our car was broken at the time. I had totaled it a couple months before. So we had to catch the bus back home. At the time, we were living with our dad. I had came home, this is years since, I seen that Bigfoot. And, I'd left in the military and went to a private contracting company, and actually went to Eastern Ukraine in 2015, saw combat, and I was dealing with mental health issues and, PTSD and all that stuff, so I had been abusing alcohol and stuff at the time. But anyway, so I lost my place, and we were living with our dad, to say the least, is what had happened, So through this time, I'm dealing with stuff as well. But, getting better from it, I was going to these grief counseling stuff, and it was helping. But so we were going back to go to our dad's house, and there's this little shortcut that we used to take that we would have to go off the path of and basically cut through a little bit of the golf course and then cut through this like area of that's connected to Cherry Creek. It's like half of it's forested, but the other half is just like this really long grass and fields type of stuff in between, basically. And we were about to cut off the path and start taking this little shortcut when my brother's like, "Hey, what is that?" And I remember looking over and thinking it was just someone's dog or something, like some huge, like one of those big dogs, like mastiffs or whatever, like, but it was all black. I remember that and thinking like, man, what the heck is that? I was like, it's just someone's dog, you know? And he was like, yeah. And I remember it had turned and looked at us, and Caleb threw a rock at it. And so I did too. I was like, huh, that doesn't look like a normal dog. I remember him saying that first, and then he threw a rock at it, and I don't know why, I did too. And I threw a rock at it, not like trying to purposely hit it, but trying to get it to like do something. And because where it was, we kind of needed to we're gonna have to go cross right by where it was if we wanted to get to the shortcut to the bus stop. And when we did, and once I threw mine, I remember this thing stood up, and like the look on my brother's face, I still remember it to this day. Because I could just imagine what was going through his head at that moment in time. And I remember looking back at it, and it was, it had to have been about 150 to 120, not much more or less than that away from us, feet. And this thing was so big that we could see its eyes darting back and forth between me and my brother. I remember that. And then it started, one thing I noticed too was it squatting down. It had like it was doing squats or something. I don't know if it was trying to get a better angle at us or what it was doing, but I remember it kept doing that. It had done it 4 or 5 times, squatting down, getting back up, onto, it wouldn't go down to all fours, but it would just squat down, doing a squat almost. And it would stay there for a couple seconds and then go right back up. And I don't know what the heck it was doing, but this really for some reason unnerved me and my brother too. And I think at that point, we just turned around and was like, all right, screw the shortcut, we're going to have to take the long way. And we just wound up taking the long way around to go to the bus stop, which is through the neighborhood and on a street, that's busy with cars. We actually never took that shortcut ever again, actually. But that was when we actually had made a visual encounter and confirmed it for me that, okay, these Dogman things are real now too, Because before I had seen this and up to that point, or even heard my buddies encounter, I kind of thought Dogman were just being misidentified Bigfoot or something like that. That's my point of thinking up to that time. And that totally changed it. I remember that changed it 100%. And that blew I remember my brother, how my brother was acting. He was like, oh my God. Man, you guys weren't lying. And he said about our buddy, he was like, man, he wasn't lying either. I was like, I never thought he was lying in the first place, and I could just tell that this was really starting to sink in. And he started to become obsessed now after this. I know you hear people I don't know if I necessarily would want to see one again, but we wanted to learn as much as we could more about them, and why don't people know about these things? Why aren't people warned before they go out in the woods? Or even worse, how many cats and dogs that have been missing, pets that have been missing from that neighborhood was astounding. And I remember taking notice of that before even hearing about anything. It had been a problem there since I think even before we had moved there. And that's not a rural area. This urban. This is where Aurora meets Denver. There's people there, and I actually think there was a bunch of homeless people there at the time too. I had heard, I think, about a couple homeless people that had died suspiciously. I don't know the details around that, so I couldn't be sure. Who knows if it's just drug overdose or what, but I remember there was suspicious stuff about a couple homeless people that had died over there that I totally forgot about until right now, remembering that. So that it's unfortunate that more people don't know about this, and that these things are right here, like literally in our backyard. And the majority of people out here have not even the slightest clue, and aren't even they're probably not even open to learning about that or taking someone seriously about that until they have their own encounter. That's what's probably going to take for a lot of these people, unfortunately, because for some reason, Big Brother does not want it to get out, obviously. I have a good, strong feeling that I still have people that, I know that they're pretty deep in our government, to say the least. And, they don't tell me a lot, but they tell me enough to where I have a deep, deep suspicion that they know what these things are. And they know more about things that we probably don't even know about. Now I'm going to tell the encounter of my good buddy. I'm not going to say his name because when I talked to him, he told me this, and he told me he doesn't care who I tell it to, but that he doesn't want his name out there because, he was a police officer at one time, and now I think he works for the Bureau of Land Management now. I'm pretty sure he works for the BLM. But anyway, he's been a bow hunter his whole life. He's from Colorado. I went to school with this guy. He now, once his grandfather passed, put his land down in Louisiana in his name. So he moved down to Louisiana, and he told me his experiences. So let me just say this. He's also one of those people that I thought it would be the last person in the world to tell me some crazy story. Like, he's that type of person, He's one of the buddies that I could call, like, if I was financially in trouble or wanted to go hunting or just needed some, like, good advice, of life advice, because he's one of those people that was just very gifted with that, being able to, like, be a big brother in a type of sense, So anyway, he had started telling me that he had started noticing some weird things around this property now. Because, it was right there on the edge of this bayou too. The swamp that he would go fishing in, loved going out in, all this stuff. He had these, they weren't pets, but they were more of a nuisance than anything, he said. These stray cats that, like, lived in this barn on the property. So, and he didn't care, if the coyotes got him or not, because they would kill every little animal around the property. So, he's a dog person, just like me. I'm a dog person too. I like big cats, but I don't like little cats. Maybe it's because I'm allergic to them, but that probably has something to do with them, but I'm not a fan. But, I didn't think that someone would, like, hurt them, I think they do, like, kill nuisance cats in certain situations, but he wasn't going to do that. He was going to let nature take its course, and he started noticing it, but it was like, noticed it in like a day where, like, there were just no stray cats anymore. And he was like, wow. And he had noticed a little bit, like, of some fur and, like, a couple blood stains up. It looked like something had grabbed one of them and, like, just pulverized it against his shed. What could do that besides, like, a person, And then I started thinking, I was like, oh, wait, you might have a cryptid or something like that. I remember telling him that, and he's like, I've been having these weird feelings. He's like, I don't know about that. Up to this point, he was skeptic too. He's like, I don't know about that. He thought, now he's thinking that, some crazed lunatic that's on bath salts or meth or something is out there on his property at night killing his cats, like freaking, like a devil person or something. Which I thought it was a possibility too when you had told me this, because that's just weird, and only two things are going to do that: a human or one of these cryptids that have hands like that. So, he had told me this before this encounter had happened. His actual encounter, he'd call me, and we talk maybe once every 2 weeks to once every week. It's around that often. So this is after, he noticed the thing with the cats. He calls me one day and he's like, man, I swear, dude, like, I'm going to shoot this crackhead. And I was like, what crackhead, bro? I was like, what are you talking about, buddy? Like, who are you going to shoot and why? He's like, man, every time he's like, it's like watching me. Like whenever I go to bed, as soon as I go to bed and lay my eyes and close my eyes, something starts running around my house and tapping on the windows. And now I'm starting to really think like, oh man, you're probably dealing with something, bud. Like you're probably dealing with something. But he still has it in his mind, you know. I still am not 100% sure because I don't know. I'm not down there. But yeah, I could see how that would get annoying. And he would run out outside when this would start happening. His floodlights would be on, but there'd be nothing out there. And so this happened a couple nights and then just stopped. And it stopped for about, he said, I don't know, like almost a week. And then it started happening again on these certain days. And it would stop. And then before he could call me again that next week, he had told me he was going hunting over the weekend. I was like, oh, cool. Send me some jerky or whatever. He gets some nice bucks down there. I've seen some of the pointers he gets out of there are nice. And this remote area that he backs up to his grandfather's property that's now his acreage. And where he went hunting, it might be on the acreage. I forgot exactly how many acres that were given to him, but I know it's a decent amount, which is, you know, it's pretty cool. And I think that land has been in this family for a long time, ever since I think they immigrated here. I think I remember him telling me that. But anyway, so yeah, I was like, oh, cool, man, you're going hunting. No, that's awesome, you know. And so he tells me about this, and he finally had an encounter, you know, found out what had been doing all this stuff, which is crazy, man. This what happened. And if anyone else would have told me this, I would have thought it was bull crap. You're full of it. You need to get your head checked out type of thing. And anyone else told me this. But this came from him, out of all people. So it makes me laugh. Just like, definitely wasn't expecting to hear this. So I'll tell you about it. He said he had been up in his little blind in like one of these cypress trees, I think it was, something like that. I'm going to relay it to you the best I can how he told me. I do have a traumatic brain injury, but I don't have that bad of memory problems. I think I got most of the details. I got the details that are important anyway, that need to be heard for sure. This could be like a movie or something like that. This is like straight out of a horror film. He had been there all day, hadn't seen any deer or nothing. He said I think about it, he had said that he had barely heard any birds all day. He had, like, periodically throughout the day, noise would come back and then it would go away periodically through the day. And where he's at, you know, he can see this bank to the swamp, you know, and there's tons of alligators in there, you know, and he said for the last 3 to 4 hours, he had known this, what he thought at the time was a big bull gator, just sitting right off the shore. You could only see the top of its head, you know, just sitting there, and didn't pay it no thought, nothing. You know, he's seen 1,000 gators before this, so he's now, you know, waiting. He's gonna, in a couple hours, about to call it quits. Starting to finally become evening time, and he said that's when this thing walked out, and he finally knew what had been pulverizing those cats and tapping his window. The second he saw it, he just knew. He made this weird emotional connection, like he just knew. This Dogman out of nowhere just comes walking, you know, bipedally, right out of this thicket of bushes, walking right to the bank, almost like it had seen this alligator off the bank, and was they're opportunistic, so I guarantee they eat alligators when they can, especially down in the swamp, in the bayou. Throughout the whole South, they probably do, if they can. You know, they're opportunistic. So he said it had like seen this alligator, and it was just making a beeline straight to it. And as he's in shock at this point in time, you know, and he's about to call it quits anyway and go back home. And he's like in shock watching this happen. And as this Dogman, he said it was about, if he was in his blind, where he's sitting down in his blind, was maybe about 12 feet off the ground. I think he said this thing, the Dogman, was around 9 feet tall, 9 to 8.5, basically 9 feet tall. And he said it had like this really, like it had been in the water before in that day. Like, you know how dogs, like how their coat gets stuck together almost, and you can see the water shining off of it, kind of like that, and it just looks like they've been swimming. He said that's what its coat looked like, and it was dark. He said it could have been dark brown, but you know, he's pretty sure it's just black. So this thing's making a beeline to this gator, and as soon as it's about, I don't know, within a couple, like next couple steps, it's going to be on top of it. This, what he thought was an alligator, with, like, in the blink of an eye, exploded out of the water, grabbing this Dogman on like by its head, under its jaw, like with its jaws, revealing a way bigger head than he thought, and this hulking, massive monster thing that kind of looked like a crocodile dinosaur type of thing. He's how he described it, like a bodybuilding freaking ginormous reptilian monster that grabbed this. You know how reptiles, I have reptiles as pets. I actually have a associate's degree in herpetology, so you know I know a lot about reptiles. I have a lot of them, and the ones that aren't, you know, venomous, or the ones that aren't constrictors when it comes to snakes and all that stuff, how they kill their prey is just by absolute blunt force trauma. Like you see on the movies, like how the T-Rex will grab someone or like just rip it around, or monitor lizards are a good example. They'll grab like a, you know, rabbit or a rat or whatever, and they'll just wring it till the bones are broken and it's dead, you know, like it's a pretty violent thing to watch, actually. And he said that's what this thing did. It is about 2 feet taller than the Dogman, so anywhere from 10 to up to 11 feet is how on 2 legs this thing's standing up, and how bulky and wide it was. It's, you know, I mean, and at this point in time, he's like almost like hyperventilating when he's telling me this. Like, I'm like, bro, calm down, you know? And he does calm down a little bit, and he tells me the rest, and how this thing just like ragdolled this Dogman. And the dog just was able to make one little, you know, like a hurt, like a, you know, like a whimpering dog sound, before this thing just casually fell back into the water with it, disappearing, just gone. And he would not have known that hulking beast of a creature was what was lurking underneath the water right there, just by looking at the big bull alligator head, what he thought was an alligator head, you know? He said it reminded him from the scene from Lake Placid where the crocodile jumps out and grabs a bear and basically, you know, ragdolls it and freaking takes it back into the water. He said that's what it reminded him of. But, like a science fiction type of way, in a way that, you know, he could barely believe himself, but he just witnessed himself. Like, he witnessed this. And now he does not go in the woods at all. I know he's selling his grandfather's land, and I'm pretty sure he's moving back to Colorado soon. Last time I talked to him was like, I think it was like 2 weeks ago now. This encounter happened, man, I can't put an exact timeline on it, but it's not that recent, but it's not that far gone either. This ruined his wilderness experience forever. He won't go bow hunting, nothing. He just refuses, especially in the bayou, he said. You know, it's nothing to do with it. He's been like paying his cousin, I think, to come stay with him at his grandpa's house. I know he has some mental health issues that he needs to take care of for sure, because he's starting to become a heavy drinker. And I know I've been down that road. I know how that goes. And it's no fun, especially if you become dependent on it. So he's my good friend. I care about him, you know. I'm going to get him the help he needs, you know, from someone that he can tell this to and that isn't going to call him a liar or think he's a crazy person, you know. I think he's afraid of that. I know he's not crazy. I know that. So I could see why he has that fear of who we can tell, and getting counseling from. And that's a hard issue nowadays, like who do these people go to? Like when they have mental issues like that, like problems like that, they need counseling, someone to talk to. I'm glad I at least with, because I know he's not lying. Like I said, I mean, anyone else tell me about this, I would have thought they were doing mushrooms or something. I don't know, but not from him. Definitely, makes you think like, wow. I mean, there is so much stuff out there that we have no idea about when we should. And it also makes you think which of those missing 411 cases, which ones are actually being attributed to, predation from these unknown animals, Makes you think, makes you wonder, for sure. And those are my encounters.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let us know. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, loves and the plow, and the five-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. The sound of a memory brings me back to the bluegrass playing on my dad's 8-track. It's Pickup Man had been through it, getting through the day on Scruggs and Skags, bucking hay bales to those Tennessee jams. There's no other way that I'd do it. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. Something going backwards and double time, looking at the soul and the tremolo Kentucky style. Those are the anthems strumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Pace of the city life drives me wild. The only tune is the cars rushing by, with the bass on the stereos booming. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. Something going backwards and double time, looking at the soul and the tremolo Kentucky style. Those are the anthems strumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Something going backwards and double time, looking at the soul and the tremolo Kentucky style. Those are the anthems strumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm, ride chicken porch swing, mama's best sweet tea kind of sound.